Here's some good advice I have shared with our athletes. Some are getting ready for Virginia Beach for the high school national tournament. Here's some do's and don'ts. Do drill a foundation of skills weekly and year round. You have to keep your foundation of skills intact. Do get some top partners and a lot of bang time with these top partners. Do get your personal weapons plan. This is where you have your individual drill plan where you're developing your personal your strengths and also stomping out your weaknesses. Most people never do this. I learned that in college and it changed my wrestling career. Do also hit some top tournaments. You don't need to spend $10,000 a year on these so-called national tournaments, but you should go to 2 or 3 a year, at least 2, I would think, and that way you can get your some live wrestling time and you can get some time in the fire, under the lights in a big competition. So it kind of helps you to develop the emotional toughness and callousing that you need. Just being battle tested it's tough to do that if you're not getting a lot of tournament time and into some of these tournaments. Do not, or these are your don'ts, don't avoid the foundation of drills and skills. Do not get lazy in the skill maintenance area. A top basketball player still hits hundreds of free throws a week. That's the reason they're on TV. A top tennis player still hones her backhand, right? Because those are core skills. The problem in wrestling is that, in a sport like basketball, there's a handful of skills, right? Whereas wrestling, we're much like a gymnast. There's a lot of skills from a lot of positions. It's just a drill-intensive sport. It's never going to change. That's a sport you signed up for. You need to change if you expect to have any success. Don't get wrapped up in partners, especially in the beginning. There's such a small part of it in the beginning. Even as you get to be nationally ranked in high school, or your top 5 or 6 in the state year after year in high school, or maybe you're a middle school wrestler and you're competing on the national level, very competitively. Even then, don't get wrapped up in partners because, I say it's 50%. It's probably less than that. But for some of us, let's say 50-50, just for all practical purposes. But what happens is we leave the drill time to go workout partner chasing. I'd rather get into a workout room with great partners once a week and then drill my core system twice a week than to go live wrestle 3 times a week in the workout partner wrestling room because my skills are going to drop. And if an elite gymnast goes from a 9.65 on the balance beam to a 9.2, she's still a tremendous gymnast. But the top colleges in the nation aren't going to call because she's one of many thousands. She needs to be one of a few. If you want to go to an elite top wrestling program, you can't be one of hundreds or one of thousands. You have to be one of a few. And that's the reason the foundation of skills has to be in place. And, they develop slowly, but you lose them slowly too. But there's not a whole lot of difference, when you're just looking at, a 9.65 down to a 9.2. But it will show. The pros can see it, and it will show on the wrestling mat. We say this: you're going to have 12 really close matches a year, maybe more, maybe less. Let's say 12. If you win 9 of those 12, you might be the state champ and you might be top 3 in the nation and you might have a famous college coach calling you. If you lose 9 of those 12, you may get 6th in the state or maybe not qualify, and you may go 2-2 at nationals, and then now you feel like, man, I'm right there, but something's missing. So the margin for error is very small, and the foundation of drills and skills is so vital. So never avoid that drill time, and most people do, and that's the reason so many kids get really good, and then they drop, and then they stay where they're at. But they're happy because they're still maybe even winning a state title, and they're happy with where they're at. But, in the beginning, you're going to get stronger in the weight room than you are in the end. No one can bench press 5,000 pounds. You might go from a 150-pound bench to a 225 in 9 months. Then 9 months later, you might be benching 300 or 280, 3 years later, you might go from 280 to 310, right? when you first go from, as an adult or a kid, I guess nowadays, if you go from 32% body fat down to 12, that happens pretty fast. Then you go from 12 to 10, that takes 4 months. Then you want to go from 10 to 8, that takes a year and a half. And you're never going to have like negative 500 body fat, right? At some point in time, it's the returns on your time are much more refined and microscopic and harder to measure. But you know what? You want to be one of a few. You don't want to be one of hundreds or one of thousands, because then, you're done. You're done. You're not gonna get to wrestle at a high level. Sure, you might get a 10% scholarship with a chance of earning more. Like the college Division I coaches tell us all the time. But you're there as a workout partner. If they tell you that, for the most part, you want to be someone who's a force. Plus, if you do have an opportunity to compete at a high level, if it takes you 2 or 3 years to hone those skills, it's tough to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go do these hard college workouts when you're number 5 on the chart. You look at the wall and you're number 5, and you're a 20-year-old man, maybe 21, and you have 2 years left. Now, sure, once you crack that lineup at a top school, you might be an All-American or maybe even in a position to win a national title. But, we don't want to be so kind of unprepared that we are going to get our head beat in for 3 years before we have a chance to compete at a college level, because that's when people quit. So important, the skills. Now, also on top of that, once the foundation is built, you want to develop some individual weapons. And I learned this at Oklahoma State. They said, don't wrestle, if you wrestle from an overhook, or you'll wrestle from an underhook. If your opponent wants to wrestle outside, you'll do it. If your opponent wants to wrestle from a tie-up, you'll do it. And I said, yes, I want to be dangerous in all positions. They go, well, that sounds good, but you're going to get someone who underhooks for a living, right? You're going to get an Iranian or a Russian. They underhook. That's how they feed their family. They've mastered that position. And you can't master everything. So Nick, your goal is to be skilled in all position. I call that foundation of skills. And then you have to get your own individual systematic approach to wrestling. You have to master some setups, some attacks, some counters from the common leg attacks, some ways to get to your feet. You just have to master some things. We have a handful in place from all the positions. You have to pick 1 or 2 of those and master them, and you can only do that on your own. And I took that advice to heart, and my wrestling took a big jump. December of my freshman year, I beat the number 2 ranked guy in America. And I know it was because I spent about 6 or 8 months really spending time developing my core skills of wrestling. Only 5 or 6 things, right? One was leg riding, 3 ways to get legs in. I had 1 ways to get legs in, but then I noticed my opponents in practice were countering. So I went to my coach and they go, well, if they do this, these are the common ways of blocking legs, Nick. Do that. It hit 1,000. So now my wrestling evolved. So instead of looking for new moves or say, my leg riding's not working, I'm going to try to develop tilts or cradle rides. No, stick with leg riding. Find out what roadblocks you're hitting. Find a technical way to crash through that roadblock and then stay on that path. So workout partners, 20% of it as you get very skilled. National, top 20 in the nation maybe. It might be 50-50. The foundation of skills has to be in place. Individual skill time and drill time, where you take a piece of paper, and a pen, and you write down your strengths and weaknesses, and you spend once a week honing those. That's vital. The problem we have is kids get to be very good on the national level, and then they just say, oh, I'm good now. I'm going to go chase workout partners. They'll find 3 or 4 wrestling rooms. They'll disappear from our program, and they'll go on a live wrestling tour every week. And they get stuck, and their wrestling suffers, and they don't get to wrestle at the big time. And, I warned them, but they don't always listen. So here's something good I saw on ESPN just a little bit ago. Mark Hall, they asked him, they go, how do you keep finding those openings for your duck under? Everyone in the nation knows you have a great duck under, but you keep hitting it. He said this, because that's my job, right? That's what he does for a living. He said, it's my job to find openings. And he smiled. That's what I'm talking about. And that's what I learned too, 25 years ago from some Olympic champions and Olympic coaches that were in our rooms at Oklahoma State back then in the 90s. So there's some awesome advice. Follow it. It will change your wrestling. Also, don't forget that, the time in the weight room, twice a week in the weight room, destroying the weights, not talking. Have your headphones on. Don't talk in the weight room. Have a stopwatch on your neck. Time your time between sets and reps so that you're not, one day you take 3-minute rest in between your squats sets, and one day you take 12 minutes because you're getting distracted. You go in there selfish and attack that weight room. Learn about nutrition. Get a book, right? When I was a kid, I outlined the 1,200-page James Brody's nutrition guide when I was 15, and I became a nutritional expert, and that helped me a lot. So just attack your wrestling career. Otherwise, other people are going to, and you're going to be sitting in the stands watching them at the NCAAs because you're not going to be there. Another thing is this, develop the mental game, all right? There's tons of YouTube clips. You can listen to every Cael Sanderson and John Smith and Tom Brand's interview. Listen to the Kyle Schneider interviews. They give their secrets away. It's on YouTube. It's free. Go listen, okay? Get some books, I like Mind Gym. The Inner Game of Tennis is good. I also like Competitive Fire, which discusses the need to protect your personal blood chemistry from the negative stress hormones. Stress kills more people in our country than anything else. And stress kills wrestling careers too. Well, we've all been down that road, I'm sure, at some point in time. And my book's really good. I'm not here to sell a book. It doesn't cost much anyway. But if you had interest, we have a book on that as well. It's on our website. But the sports psychology side of wrestling is something you should spend a lot of time developing because you want the emotional toughness. We talk a lot about mental toughness, but we never talk about emotional toughness. Emotional toughness is going to separate you. Mental toughness, run 100 bleachers until you throw up and then run 50 more. That's mental toughness. Do push-ups till you cry and then do 300 more. That's anybody can be mentally tough. Just pushing yourself through pain. Emotional toughness is something that you have to work on. So spend some time studying the books on performance anxiety and listen to the speeches and advice of experts who have already done what you're trying to do, and your wrestling career can take a big jump. Check us out at perlawrestling.com. We have a 15,000 square foot privately owned training center. It's a campus, actually, on 10 acres just outside of St. Louis. Kids coming in this summer from as far away as Germany for our camps. They fill up almost 100% of the time over the past couple of decades. So we have camps year-round, our academy. So if anybody's interested in training with us, great. If not, that's great too. Just make sure that you're getting the training that you need because you have to be one of a few, not one of hundreds, and certainly not one of thousands if you want to wrestle at a big-time college wrestling program and have success. So check us out, perlawrestling.com. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe. We've got more videos coming.